What we do here is go back.
How's it going, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of the Lost Media podcast. And today, yes, we are talking about the late breakfast show incident. This was a television show that aired on the BBC in the 1980s. I think it was between 84 and 86, hosted by Noel Edmondson and another dude that's become completely forgotten. This is one of those really crazy and questionable pieces of lost media that we don't know if it was even filmed or if it even exists, but this was a serious tragedy that happened on the show. The Late Breakfast Show had a segment where they'd spin a wheel and whatever it landed on, a member of the public would test out a dangerous stunt. You can already tell where this is going. Back in the day, they just allowed all sorts of shit like this on television. They were okay with this. The thing about this show was they at least had the wheel rigged, so they knew exactly what it was going to land on, what stunt, and which member of the public was going to be doing it, because they had already been training for a while to do the stunt. And then it just happened on that show, or the following show, the next week. This show really did push the limits, though, of what's safe to be recorded and what's safe to be carried out on television. And I think a lot of television networks and shows learnt a lot from how badly this show did this segment, how little care they had for the members of the public, these really great people who are willing to risk their lives for a stupid television show on the BBC. What's playing behind me is footage of an accident that occurred on the show where a stunt car jump went pretty wrong and the car almost landed on a crowd of people. And there's people in the comments section for this video that said, "I remember I was there on the day and we quickly jumped in a ditch to avoid the car hitting us." Like, you can already tell this show just didn't give a shit. They didn't plan out things well enough. They just wanted a lot of ratings and a lot of views, and they weren't taking a lot of care with the stunts that they were putting random members of the public through. And the BBC actually had a practice after what I'm about to talk about, where they didn't allow members of the public to take part in stuff that only trained professionals should really be attempting. There was a stunt they were gonna do on this show where someone was standing on a old oil refinery, an old giant brick chimney before it was collapsed, and they were meant to be standing on it as it was collapsed, and then a crane lifted them up from it while it was all happening. Obviously controlled demolition of this old oil refinery or old brick chimney, and they cancelled this because the Health and Safety Authority caught wind of them doing this on this show, and they were like, "You guys are idiots, stop it, you're not doing this. We don't care how much ratings you want. We've seen your stunts, we've seen you carry these out, and they don't always go well. People have suffered pelvic injuries from stunts that they were taking part in on this show. And this guy that crashed in the car was probably the worst of everyone. He suffered heaps of injuries, suffered broken pelvis, I'm pretty sure, was that guy. And a lot of people got injured doing this stuff. And it was on every week and everyone loved it, but they weren't putting enough due diligence and enough care into these people's safety and whether or not this was going to be carried out in a safe way. And it eventually reached an end to this show. From what happened on the Late Show, they did a stunt involving a member of the public known as Michael. And Michael Lush, his name was really pumped to do this stunt. He put his full trust in them that they were doing it properly, and they weren't doing it properly. It was a giant metal cage that was suspended by a crane very high off the ground, and a bungee cable was connected to the cage, and he was meant to do a bungee jump out of this cage Very bizarre stunt. Already by the sounds of it, it doesn't sound like a proper thing that you would actually do. And the bungee cable was meant to catch him, and that was how the stunt was meant to play out. It was just meant to be this crazy thing. Obviously, why would anyone like that? Even a trained professional would be like, "Oh, I don't know about that." Trained professionals would warn this show, and I think they warned them on this stunt. Guys, make sure you have like people that are trained hours and hours, years and years in carrying out stunts like this. They didn't fucking listen. Of course they didn't. The person carrying out this stunt had never had any training in any stunts like this before, and almost no stunts. I don't think they had ever had any training in carrying out a stunt before. And you know those plastic mountaineering things you see, the clip-ons for a harness? Well, Michael Lush had one of those attached to him, and it was tested that thing could break open by a pound of sugar. Falling with that thing, trying to hold onto a pound of sugar, it could just snap open. And they were using that for a guy's life. To hold the guy's life was something that could break open with a pound of sugar. So you don't have to imagine what happened. Michael was doing the stunt, and this is the part where it becomes lost media or not, which probably shouldn't be found, but is probably worth discussing whether or not it exists. Worth discussing. It is disgusting what happened. Whether or not it exists, that this was actually filmed. He's doing the stunt. He jumps out of the cage suspended by a crane. This terrible... By the way, that was a flimsy thing as well. That was some crap they put together that hadn't been tested yet. Never been tested, the stunt, or any type of test to do with this cage. He jumps from it. Bungee cord's meant to catch him. It's coiled up. He hits the pavement immediately from I don't know how many meters up, and the useless rest of the bungee cable just falls down next to him because it was too long. They didn't even test the length of this fucking thing. What are they doing? What are they doing? So the guy in charge of the safety, you'd think he'd have enough balls to just be like, guys, I don't know what I'm doing here. Nah, they did it. They went ahead and did it, and this guy died doing this. And the real question is, well, first off, the show was cancelled immediately, and Noel Edmondson took a break from television and eventually came back to host things like Deal or No Deal UK and other stuff like breakfast shows. But was it recorded? Did they record this thing? I think they did. I think the tape still exists somewhere, personally. I don't think they erased that. I think it's used as a training tape for why they shouldn't do this stuff and why they should take due diligence with stunts on television. But it hasn't been leaked anywhere online yet, and doesn't exist anywhere. So it might not be used as a training tape to show people, which unfortunately they do that when something horrible happens on television. There's a massive accident. They use it as an example of how to avoid that happening again. But I think this was recorded and it's just sitting somewhere. I don't think it was destroyed, the recording. They do sometimes ask, most of the time, maybe not back in 86, they ask the family, hey, do you want this to be destroyed? And they usually go, yes, and they destroy it. But there's no mentioning anywhere of what happened to the tape recording this. A lot of people think this was potentially a practice of the stunt happening before they were meant to do it live on air. And I don't think it was. I think this was the actual stunt taking place. I don't think this was the practice. I think this was the real thing, and then they were just going to insert it into the show. But you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. You can correct me, say this is the practice one and they weren't actually recording and they were just practicing at the time. But I think this was the real thing and they were recording. From what I've looked up and what I've read on this and the information I've gathered, this was the actual thing. Because why would you do it twice? It's too much of a risk. Well, they would. Stupid show. They're recording. I'm pretty sure they're recording. And I don't know what's the tape where it is, if it's where it's lost. Shouldn't really be released out of respect for this dude, Michael. He really was sure they had their wits about them when it came to the safety of this. He was 100% sure. They asked him, they're like, oh, do you want to do a little test from a smaller height and maybe, test a few times? He's like, no, let's just do it. He was like so excited. He's like, yeah, no, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm excited. I know tests are needed. Let's just go ahead and let's do this. He believed in their safety that much. And I understandably so. It's a real legit shit. It's supposed to be. It's not. They don't give a fuck. They want ratings. They want people watching. They want bums on seats, people looking at the TV. They don't give a shit about the safety of someone who's put their faith and their life in the hands of a stupid television network, the BBC. Litigious crap organization. So, gee, I'm really getting negative now. Another aspect of this is the BBC's like to his family, we're going to give you £130,000, roughly £358,000 now, adjusted for inflation, or I don't know what that is, adjusted to whatever currency you have watching this video, but 125,000? Are you fucking kidding me? First of all, that's an insult. It's a stupidly low amount. Second of all, give me back my fucking person, my family member you killed, you fucks. Thanks for lowballing me for killing my freaking family member. They're pieces of shit. Fucking pieces of shit. People that are in charge of entertainment television networks back in the day and even still today, they don't give a fuck about anyone. They just want ratings. And this was Exhibit A. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I hope it doesn't get released, this footage, one day. I don't know if there's enough interest to get it released, which is good. But I think the footage still exists somewhere and it is lost, hopefully. It's one of those examples of lost media we hope is lost, because this is a really sad thing that happened. I'm not trying to find this. I'm not morbidly interested in this being released. I'm just kind of shedding a light on a really sad thing that happened so that we can remember this guy and remember that this stuff shouldn't happen. But yes, it is lost, the tape, and it is, I reckon, I'm of the opinion it was recorded. And I'm happy to confirm in my judgment that this was recorded and it exists still somewhere. But anyway, fuck the BBC. Fuck this stupid show for not caring enough about anything but ratings. And that's the story of Michael Lush, a guy who was just a good old larrikin British dude who wanted to just have fun, obviously, in life, and wanted to take part in anything he could that was awesome. And he won, guys. He won the opportunity to be on this show, and this is what they did. So screw this show. And yeah, perfect example of a really morbid thing that I actually couldn't believe happened in real life on television, but it happened. It's like something out of a movie, or out of like literally a tale about. It's like something out of a TV show, out of a movie that happened on TV in the show, and you'd never believe this happened in real life, but it did. Thanks for watching, guys. I've got more episodes coming up soon. That was episode 14 of the Lost Media podcast. I want to cover more animated pieces of Lost Media that are, more widely spread, so people can, get around a topic that they know about. But I want to make sure it's mostly completely lost. I might do a revisited of a topic I did a few years ago. Maybe we'll see how we go. First week of this channel, and it's already. I'm so happy with what's happened, and I really appreciate the support so much. It is awesome, guys. Thank you so much. But that's it. That's this video. The end. Subscribe, suggest in the comments whatever you want for me to cover. Bye-bye. That was loud. That was too loud.